Hi guys, I'm probably going to link this as a document, but I'm going to be making a video called Danganronpa Ripes of the fandom. This was me and my friend kind of brainstormed this. My friend in question kind of made a similar post on one of their fandoms that a lot of people ended up liking. They made it on Amino though. I'm most likely just going to keep this on YouTube with maybe Amino if I ever do get it, like if I want to. Anyways, I just want to say that this is like 8-ish parts long, and I ideally want 300-ish words for each thing. So there's 6 if we don't count the intro and the conclusion. Anyways, I just want to say that there is a trigger warning for abuse of all kinds: mental, physical, neglect, and sexual. The video will be talking about colorism, racism, religious discrimination, LGBTQ plus related topics, misrepresentation of mental illness, and of course murder. So if any of these things are uncomfortable for you, don't watch the video. By the way, everything I mentioned will be in order. So like section 1 of the video is abuse, section 2 is colorism, section 3 is racism, and so on. The only one that doesn't get its own section is murder, which just kind of expected throughout the video because this is Danganronpa. That's like the main thing about Danganronpa. It's a murder mystery. Like those are the two things about the story. Yet again, this is all my personal opinion of what I have seen and kind of interpreted through the fandom. Some of these might be more like just well known, like the misrepresentation of mental illness, whereas I think that fans are somehow like, just in my personal opinion, this isn't me saying like if you don't like X character you're racist. It's like, well, X character, like, I'm going to just use an example right here. In the racism bit, I will talk about Hiyoko Saionji and why I think her actively embracing her Japanese culture and looking more Asian than the rest of the cast, like not more Asian, but she like embraces her culture. She embraces that she is from Japan. She wears a kimono. She is very traditionally Japanese. You cannot argue that like people just hate her because she's rude. Like I think that her actively looking more Japanese somehow like subconsciously plays in people's heads. Like they're like, yeah, but she also looks more like I'm not trying to be rude, but I think that some people subconsciously hate her for her embracing her culture. And just that, like, there's 4 other characters who are very similar, well, 3 technically, with Byakuya, Sonya, and Kokichi, and they are all very similar to her, and they're not hated. So anyways, I'm gonna delve more into that in section 3, which was racism. I don't have anything written down at the time of recording this intro. I might later on. There's also going to be a warning for just most Danganronpa characters will be covered in this somehow. So yeah, there also might be me talking about like the way that the fandom treats fat people as well, which yet again isn't good. This is more of like in-game stuff, by the way. This isn't like, not in-game, but like this isn't like cosplay or anything like that. This is like stuff that the fandom does to select characters. Yet again, you can disagree with me all you want. This is my personal interpretation. I'm not saying like, I'm going to use this example again. I'm not saying if you hate Hiyoko Saionji, you're racist. That is not what I'm saying whatsoever. It's my personal opinion, though, that some of Hiyoko's hate, or half of Hiyoko's hate, I'll say actually, is stemmed from just internalized racism that you don't know that you have, because she is the only one of the characters in my like memory that I'm thinking of right now that actively embraces her Japanese culture. Like, you cannot deny that. Like, she's the ultimate traditional dancer. Like, anyways, I'm not gonna reveal more. I'm going to be talking about that later on. Like, I'm going to reiterate over and over again, my opinion does not equal fact. You can disagree. I'm not claiming to be the god of Danganronpa and everything that's right. If you don't like Hiyoko, you're not instantly a racist, etc., etc. Because it literally, the racism argument, if you don't like X character, could be used in this entire document except for Sonya. So that's not what I'm saying. Like, if you hate Hiyoko, you are not instantly racist. I'm going to drill that in your head, so if someone comments that, I can say, no, watch the video. Because this is, yet again, I'm going to say this over and over again, and I might repeat myself lots. This is my personal opinion from what I have witnessed in the fandom and what I personally think is the issue. This is not confirmed data. This isn't confirmed by anyone. I'm not the god of the universe. I'm just making a video of things that I find wrong with the fandom. That is it. I am not Kazutaka Kodaka. I'm not like Masafumi, whatever his last name is. I am nobody on the Danganronpa team. Hi guys, sorry if you can hear a lawnmower that's going, and there's also, like, my room's next to the laundry room, so there's also that. This is section 1, which is character abuse. This section is honestly my most obvious section on what it's about. I mainly want to talk about the way how the fandom treats the abuse survivors of all the Danganronpa media is terrible, especially towards Mikan Sumiki, Hiyoko Saionji, and Korekiyo Shinguji. Some characters also often have their abuse overlooked, like Byakuya, Mahiru, and Pekoyama, and others like the Warriors of Hope are pretty well known to be abuse survivors. I just want to also put a disclaimer. The main bit in this will definitely be Korekiyo Shinguji. His has like 826 words in it, so sorry if the video is too long. I might do all these, and this is going to be a very long video. Skip to whenever you want to. Put this on when you're playing The Sims 4 or whatever, when you're writing. Just do it whenever. My main issue with this is like the way the fandom demonizes Korekiyo Shinguji and acts like he's a disgusting person, but in reality he really honestly isn't to me. He's just as much of a survivor as all the other people mentioned above him, but people like to reduce him down to sister fucker, when in reality Korekiyo's older sister, who I'm going to be calling sister, is the abuser, who used the fact that she was older than him and the fact that she was very sick to manipulate a young and naive Korekiyo. It's never really stated when the abuse actually started, but it's pretty obvious that Korekiyo didn't realize that this was wrong. He believed what was happening to him was normal. He even tells his class that his lover and his sister were one and the same, as if it was just something normal that everyone did. All of Korekiyo is literally based off of his sister. His ultimate talent relates to her, his appearance relates to her, his tulpa / personality that he created relates to her, even his double murder is somehow related to this vile woman. Korekiyo was a victim. What his sister did to him was not right. And yes, incest is very, very disgusting, but quit treating Korekiyo like he's the problem. He is not the problem. His sister was the problem. People like to blame him mainly due to the fact that he's a man, which kind of reinforces the belief that only men can be abusers, which very incorrect, and the fact that his sister was sick and weak, but even sick people can be abusers. Like, it's pretty obvious that she abused him. Like, I know this is more of a rant in this particular section, but I will say, Korekiyo or the survivor is not the problem. The abuser and incester is the problem, unless they actively know that incest is wrong, like the person who's getting it, like the Korekiyo in this case knows that it's wrong, but still want it, then they are a part of the problem. But in Korekiyo's case, he doesn't know that that was wrong, and his moral compass is very different from your average Joe's moral compass. Here are some Korekiyo's quotes to give you insight on his character. I'm going to be reading this in just a normal voice. Humanity is truly wonderful. The way you all confront adversity is beautiful. So everyone feels that killing is wrong. But why is that? Of course, I know to be against the law, but laws are simple rules people decided upon. This is a space removed from those rules. Therefore, we've no need to follow them. He says that, I'm so sorry. I only wish to observe the beauty of humanity and witness the depths of its sins, so you've no need to fear me. Beautiful. Your spirit of self-sacrifice is just too beautiful. Personally, I find this culprit frighteningly thorough. Such a bold, beautiful plan. I never even imagined there was a ropeway. Respect begins to bloom in my heart for this wonderfully cruel culprit. Sorry, I have to do that again. There is such absolute beauty in trying to fight against the truth. Every part of a human being, even their ugly sides, is beautiful. There is no limit to beauty. Kirumi, she too had her own exceptional beauty, a crime that was bold yet calculated, a battle against the truth, brutally killing others for her beliefs, unfeelingly sacrificing the few for the many, and her attachment to life and determination to live. Her attempt to escape was so very ugly. It was pathetic, pitiful, wretched, but it was beautiful. I had never before seen such beauty in a human being before. Yes, we vowed an endless love to each other, forever bound by fate. No one can come between us. We were bound by an intense love, no matter what anyone says. As you can see from these few quotes that I provided, Crecchio has a warped moral compass, and his way of thinking is very different from you and I. Crecchio, like previously stated, views all of humanity as beautiful. This includes things such as murder, torture, disowning people, violence, bullying, abuse, incest, among other things. If a human can do it, Crecchio will find it beautiful, but in his execution, we see that Crecchio was killed, then turned into a ghost, obviously. We then see that his ghost, like the ghost sister and Monokuma, kill him with salt, Crecchio's sister seemingly being happy or delightful that she gets to cause him more pain. To the sister, Crecchio was just an object that she could use and hurt, but to Crecchio, his sister was his everything, which clearly shows that she was the abuser and how disgusting they are. If she had not abused him, he most likely would have been a very different person to what we see. Of course, Crecchio still does find bad things beautiful, but he most likely wouldn't find negative things like murder quote-unquote beautiful, and I believe that was just a part of him being abused by his sister, or maybe she told him that stuff like what she was doing to him was okay and quote-unquote beautiful. Anyways, Crecchio's section is getting long. In fact, it has 826 words, so next up is Hiyoko Saionji, who's also treated like shit for what she had to endure. She was abused by her grandmother and mother, and she was basically taught how to be a traditional dancer by her grandma, and that was all she was taught. She doesn't know how to cook, clean, do the laundry or dishes, and she doesn't even know how to tie her own kimono. Nagito implies that most of her fans are pervy older dudes who like to watch her because of her childlike appearance, and to top it all off, she was almost assassinated multiple times throughout her life, although most of the attempts were when she was a child. In order to stop others from being hurt in these assassination attempts, Hiyoko began to slowly push everybody away from her, or if they got too close somehow, her response was to bully them in the hopes that they would leave eventually and not be a target for said assassinations. Unfortunately for her, Ibuki Miyota, Mahiru Koizumi, and Mikan Sumiki all really managed to get past her bullying. Ibuki often deflects her bullying, Mahiru doesn't get bullied by her, and Mikan is mainly like the brunt of the joke or whatever. Like, she's always the person that Hiyoko's joking about in a rude way. Kind of just stays friends for the other two, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe she genuinely likes Hiyoko, it's not really stated. And you might be wondering, why doesn't she bully Mahiru? And the answer is simple. To quote her, Mahiru is a good person. And in Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair, she even goes further, saying that Mahiru was the only person on the island she wasn't embarrassed to be seen around. And this mainly stems from when Mahiru tied her kimono for her and taught her how to tie a kimono, and Mahiru's general quote-unquote mom friend vibe. And Hiyoko obviously not having a good relationship with any of her female family members. Combined, this makes Hiyoko absolutely adore Mahiru, who was basically the mother she always wanted. Side note, Hiyoko's father would also be the father that Mahiru would have wanted too, so just saying that. The only other non-Mahiru student whom Hiyoko is somewhat on good terms with is Hajime Hinata, who she says like he reminds her a lot of her father, and Hiyoko seems to hate most of her classmates, saying these things to them. I'm also going to say who she says it to and when. It's a good thing that your ears are awesome, because your face, style, figure, and personality all totally suck. To Ibuki Miyota in the first trial, nobody would kill Mahiru besides a piece of shit menace to society like Fuyuhiko, about Fuyuhiko Kazuryu in trial 2. I hope you get a hangnail and die. To Mikan Sumiki, I just want to say Hiyoko is way more for Mikan, but we would be here all day then. I heard asbestos is yummy too. You should try some later. To Akane Awari in Trial 1. It's obvious from your flashy clothes that you just want to stand out because you are actually a loser. Hee hee. It must be so hard to make your living in the lame-ass loser industry. To Kazuichi Soda in Chapter 1. What are you even saying, you nasty toilet clogging bitch? To Peko Peko Yama in Trial 2. Hey, it's definitely best if we keep Nagito tied up. No, not just tied up. I won't be satisfied until I peel the skin off his face and expose the meat so we can't identify him anymore. About Nagito Komaeda in Chapter 3. Ooh, this one looks like she'll be fun to break. Her social position, her organs, her life, and more. About Chisa Yukizome in Danganronpa 3, Despair Side episode 1, and then let's make that Enoshima's teeth chatter about Junko Enoshima in Danganronpa 3 Despair Side episode 9. As you can see, she uses a lot of insults and threats to get her way, but she also doesn't just prey upon weaker people like Mikan. She isn't afraid to insult or threat people who are physically stronger than her, like Fuyuhiko, Peko, Akane, Chisa, Nagito, and Junko. Yes, what she does is wrong, but she was on the path to self-betterment after chapter 2. She decides to make herself a better person, not just for her, but also for the now dead Mahiru. She's the only person who actually likes Ibuki's heavy metal / rock music, whereas the rest of the surviving class, minus an absent Akane Awari, all express their dislike or hatred for her music, except for Hiyoko, who earlier on insulted everything about Ibuki, which just goes to show that she doesn't actually need her insults, or at one point she did, but she no longer does. What she did was a survival mechanism that she had. She wasn't instantly going to change herself back into the Hiyoko she was before this survival mechanism, and it would make sense if she didn't, like, she gained this mechanism to survive, and she is in a killing game that's like a hard place to try and get rid of said survival mechanism, and she got it to avoid being murdered, and she's in a killing game. Like I said earlier, I will be the first person to admit that she was a bitch to most of her class, but like Korekio, she is just a misunderstood victim whose point of view gets turned and tossed so much to fit the haters' perspective on her. I also want to state this right now. If you can't tell, this is all subjective. This is just my opinion. I'm not forcing you to like Hyoko. I'm not holding a gun up to your head and saying you must like Korekio Shinguji and Hyoko Saionji. I'm providing insight on why these characters do deserve to be forgiven and how the fandom treats them compared to other abuse victims. I know this is so far off from abuse, but Hyoko was neglected by her parents, and assassination attempts, like, not her parents, her grandmother and mother. Her father was actually good, but he had no real say in anything because he married into the Saionji clan and his mother was a member of the clan. So I know this might seem off topic, but I'm still talking about abuse. What Hyoko does is still stemming from her abuse and assassination attempts, so I think it gets to be in this part. So yeah. Okay, I just want to start this off since I'm recording this on a different day. Like, all these are probably recorded on different days, so, like, sorry. Anyways, finally, our last misunderstood and twisted abuse survivor is Mikan Sumiki. She is actually also a target for bullying as well, and it's even described that her haircut is, like, cut unevenly because the bullies did it to her. It's also stated that she likes her job as a nurse, as her patients are the only people who are physically weaker than her, which just kind of goes to show you her own mentality. I might cover her later on, but don't know. Anyways, but this section is about Mikan, and it will mainly focus how the fandom treats her and her surviving sexual abuse. Mikan often puts herself in very lewd positions, then just in brackets right here. This is on a document that I'm reading this, so right now, if you're reading the document or whatever, if you have it on, there will be lewd photos after this of her positions, just so you can get an idea. If you are uncomfortable, click off or flip the phone upside down and I'll tell you when they're done. So, in Mikan's mind, negative attention or her sexualizing herself for attention is better than no attention. Not to mention, not all sexual abuse survivors are sex repulsed to soft-spoken little ooh baby beans. Some survivors do become hypersexual, like Mikan. Am I saying that all survivors are hypersexual? No, not by any means. Everybody will experience this differently, and I'm not saying that all fictional characters who are survivors they don't need to be hypersexual. They do not. Not every person who survives is hypersexual, but some are. It's just that the stereotype, as I said before, is what sexual abuse survivors always get turned into, and the way the fandom treats her like she's a baby when she's at least 20 years old by the time Goodbye Despair occurred. She thought she was like 17 or 18, but she was biologically 20. And also the way the fandom speaks over actual survivors. Like I said in one of my last videos where I talked about this, if I got anything wrong about this, please inform me. I don't want to spread any false information about any of this. So, yeah. Sorry, I did record this, but then my dog started barking. I'm so sorry. If you hear her, just ignore her. Anyways, as you can see, these three characters who are all survivors of abuse get treated very differently. Korekiyo gets treated like he's the disgusting character in his relationship when in reality it's his sister. Hiyoko gets treated like she deserved to be neglected by her grandmother and mother and that she like deserved all the assassination attempts on her and shit. And Mikon gets treated like a child, and as well as that, the fandom treats sexual abuse survivors like they can't be hypersexual and that's something that's disgusting and they can never do. Of course, there were other characters that I mentioned earlier on within this section, but we would be here for like half a year if I included every little detail that I wanted to. And with that, we will start on the next section. Hi y'all, this is section 2. This section will only detail the darker skinned Asian characters. So for example, Angie, who is presumably half Polynesian, will not be included in this section. She'll be included in the religious discrimination and racism section, I believe. Anyways, where should I start in this section? Okay, let's start off with Aoi Asahina. Aoi Asahina, or as fans of the English Western version of the game call her, Hina, is an optimistic girl who has a passion for sports and believes in everybody around her, and is also fan service, mainly for the creator of Danganronpa himself, Kazutaka Kodaka, or as many fans call him, Kodaka. Kodaka himself has said that he likes Aoi for her body, and it is admitted that he likes darker-skinned women. End of the story on that one. It isn't a coincidence that he had said both of these things, and there's also another character who got very similar treatment to Aoi, being Akane Iwari. Akane Iwari, who is the ultimate gymnast, let's just say her splash art has a panty shot in it for no reason. The exact same thing also happens to Sakura Ogami for, yet again, no reason. Akane also had to sell out her body for food and money to help feed her younger siblings, and she seemingly doesn't understand that this is an odd thing that most people do not do, which yet again just proves that Kodaka will sexualize darker-skinned women if the story calls for it. So Akane and Aoi, the story obviously in his opinion called for their sexualization. In Angie's case, she's wearing a bikini, which kind of is a little odd considering she's the only character in canon who constantly wears a bikini top. But that's just Angie and her style, and she does come from a tropical island, so. Anyways, now on to the last woman who will be mentioned in the colorism section, Sakura Ogami, who isn't actually sexualized for the most part. Instead, she is referred to by ogre and the closest living relatives to apes. Here's a picture of what she looks like. If you do not see the problem here, please get your eyes checked. This is a huge problem. Hell, out of all the darker skinned characters in Danganronpa who are not black, Sakura has the darkest skin. She is referred to as ogre and the closest living relatives to apes. They are dehumanizing her, which fucking sucks and is wrong. Hell, even Yasuhiro Hagakure, who is a darker skinned Asian man or possibly Blasian, calls her an ogre and dehumanizes her. Okay, now let's talk about Teru Hanamura, who is small, fat, oddly designed, perverted, and an attempted rapist times 2. Although he has done many wrong things, if he got his beta design, apparently to fans that would make him better and more likable. For reference, here's what his beta design left looks like, and what he canonically looks like on the right. I would also like to point this out here. The main reason why he probably did not get his beta design was because it looks too similar to Mondo Iwata, and I'll put up a picture of his beta design and Mondo. They look very similar. That explains why he didn't receive his beta design, and some other factors probably played into that. And finally, let's talk about Yasuhiro Hagakure. Many fans, myself considered, believe that Yasuhiro is Blasian, Black Asian, with his mother Hiroko Hagakure being Japanese and his father being the black parent. It is possible that he got his mother's name from birth since she was 14 when she gave birth to him. It's also revealed in a free time event with him that one time when his dad was smoking and fell asleep, which almost caused his dad to burn down the house and kill both of them. I believe after this, Hiroko either left or broke up with his father, which yes, but the entire thing here is a stereotype that black fathers aren't good at parenting, which is outright false. I would also like to note here, out of all the darker skinned Asian characters, which Hina, Akane, Sakura, Teru, Yasuhiro, and the non-mentioned Yuta Asahina, all are boiled down to very weird things. Like, if you were to boil down Asahina and Akane, it would just be fan service. Yuta Asahina is literally introduced, then immediately dies. Sakura Ogami is dehumanized and is referred to as ogre and closest living relative to apes. She's also the only character to canonically kill herself in Danganronpa. And she is the traitor. There's also some other sexualization with Sakura, although not as much as Akane and Aoi. Teru, as mentioned before, is a pervert and rapist who also is a killer, which anyone can be a killer, but like, he's the first killer. I mean, out of all the killers, he does have a somewhat sympathetic motive. And then Yasuhiro Hagakure is presented as stupid, and that his dad, who is presumably black, is not good at parenting. Also, many fans call Yasuhiro Weed Man, which yet again perpetuates a stereotype that black people, like that all black people or half black people do drugs, which like, this could have been in the racism section, but that section is saved for other characters, so sorry if they weren't included in there. The racism colorism section kind of overlaps with some of these characters. Anyways, I'm really sorry if this section was shorter than expected. The video document will be very long, and I just finished writing Rurika's section, which is later on in this, and that has like 1,682 words in it, so I'm sort of tired out. This one only has like 582, I think, words in it, so yeah. If you go on Instagram, you can find way better posts explaining why this is bad. Okay, now this section is entirely what I have came to the assumption to. This is section 3, racism. None of these are facts, and I am not the god of the universe. This is all my opinion from what I have seen and just theorized about. So, anyways, let's get on to my first point of this section. The first character I will talk about is Hiyoko Saionji, and I honestly believe that a part of the reason why the fandom hates her is because she's the only character to wear a traditional Japanese clothing piece, and she's the only character to fully embrace her ethnicity as Japanese. For reference, I'll be comparing her to Sonya Nebamindo, Byakuya Togami, Kokichi Oma, and those four. So here's an image of all of them. As you can see, they all kind of look very similar, not in the case of Kokichi. Like, just from physical appearance, you can see that 3/4 of them are blonde with a lighter skin tone, as well as Byakuya and Sonya are wearing fancier clothes. And personality-wise, 3 of the 4 of them share a personality or have a similar one. Unfortunately, Sonya does not have a personality. Anyways, let's compare what Hiyoko does to what the other two do and see why the fandom hates her so much. So from my recollection, Hiyoko has bullied her classmates and teacher, but specifically Mikon Sumiki and Kazuichi Soda, has drugged her class with an aphrodisiac, and has called Fuyuhiko a piece of shit menace to society. And that's all the 3 negative things she has done. Now let's look what Kokichi has done. Kokichi has been responsible for 3 of the Blackened becoming a Blackened: Kirumi Tojo, Gonto Gokuhara, and Kaito Momota. He blackmailed Kaito Momota into becoming the Blackened to save Maki Harukawa. He bullied Miu. This was a 2-side thing, but we aren't talking about her here. He told a crying Himiko that she killed her 2 closest friends, Tenko Chabashira and Angie Onaga. He is to blame for the deaths of 6 people in the killing game: Ryoma Hoshi, Kirumi Tojo, Miu Aruma, Gonta Gokuhara, Kaito Momota, and himself. He revealed Maki's true talent to the group to make them distrust her. She's the ultimate assassin. And I believe he has tried to get the class to kill themselves twice. And finally, let's see what Byakuya has done. Outed a girl with DID to prove that her alter was a serial killer, messed with a dead body for the previous point, and was a dick to all of his classmates, especially Aoi Asahina. So now, according to these people, bullying people is somehow worse than murder and outing someone with DID. Yes, all of these things are bad. Acknowledge that Byakuya and Kokichi aren't a god reincarnated. They are not. I honestly believe that some of the reason why Hiyoko gets hate is due to racism that people don't believe they have, or they just plainly don't like her because of what she did. But for the latter, they have to do mental gymnastics to explain why Byakuya and Kokichi have done nothing wrong and why Hiyoko is the devil herself. And my next point here is what the team behind DR has done with the character, being Daisaku Bandai. As you can see, this is what he looks like. Can you guess his talent? He is the ultimate farmer. And to my knowledge, it's a Japanese stereotype that all black people are farmers. Not to mention, this is just personal. They decided to give their one very clearly black character the voice of a 6-year-old girl who has just consumed helium and is sugar high. If you do not see the issue with this, please open your eyes. Like, it's not that hard to make a black character and not make them like have a weird voice or be a racist stereotype. It is not that hard. The world is not going to end if you make a black character who isn't based off of negative stereotypes. That has to be said. And yes, I know I'm going to get the comments, but Daisaku has a Japanese name. He's probably Blasian. Ever think about that? For all we know of, like, let's say grandparent-wise, for all we know of, 3 of his 4 grandparents could have been black and one of them could have been Japanese. And, like, for all we know of his dad was Japanese, so then his dad gained the last name Bandai, and then his mom just took that name as well. We don't know that. Hell, he could be full black and was adopted by a Japanese family. We don't know. Anyways, yeah. And now we're on section 4, religious discrimination. I will admit that this section could fit into the racism section in a way, and kind of does in my opinion, but let's just say that this is technically a subsection of section 3. Anyways, let's get into this. The translators fucked up. They incorrectly translated Kami-sama to Atua when referring to Angie's god. When referring to her god, I will be calling them Kami-sama or Angie's god, unless I literally have to use Atua in a non-offensive way. Angie is often a target for what in the fandom for Atua jokes. I don't know if it's pronounced Atua or Atua. Atua sounds better, so if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm so sorry. A Polynesian religion is being used as a joke, which fucking sucks. Not to mention, most Polynesian people are now Christian due to, like, the Christians, you know, doing their thing. I say in a mean voice. Anyways, I think that it also sucks when people make fun of her, especially because in the English version of the game, Angie is obviously a cult leader. She's a cult leader in both versions in the game, but in the Japanese one, there is no real deity behind her cult. No real deity in the Japanese version of the game is associated with her cult. In the English version, though, Atua is associated with her cult. And in no way am I saying that you're the worst person on earth for making an Atua joke. I'll even admit myself, I have made Atua jokes before, but now I look back on it and realize 1, they aren't funny, and 2, that was problematic of me. But my issue lies with, if you know about, like, the Atua issue and continue to make jokes, that is when I have a problem. If you're, like, making an Atua joke and you legitimately did not know, that's okay. If you know about Atua and you continue making jokes, that is where the problem lies. Like, it's not that hard. And also, I don't even get how... I'm sorry, I need to go on a rant here. This is not in the Google document, so you'll have to watch the YouTube video for this. Anyways, well, you're already watching it, I'm so sorry. This is version exclusive. Anyways, what I don't get is how did they incorrectly translate God to Atua? Because Kami, or Kami-sama, is God. How do you incorrectly translate it that much? Like, that's like me saying, okay, I'm gonna write down God. Oh, did you say Athena? Like, no, if that happened with any other god, I can guarantee, like a god that isn't from Europe, I can guarantee you the fandom would be so mad. They're like, what? No, it's not Zeus, it's God. But if it's a Polynesian god, it's like, yeah, whatever. We don't care. We'll make jokes about it. And like I said, if you make jokes and you legitimately do not know, that is okay. But if you do know the issue and you continue to make jokes, that is not okay. This is just basic human knowledge. If anyone does have Atua jokes in the comments, I'll be deleting them just because it's not funny. And number 2, try and refrain from using the term Atua when directly talking about Angie's god. If you're going to talk about Angie's god, use Kami, Kami-sama, or just Angie's god, Island god, anything that isn't associated with an actual deity. And yes, Kami and Kami-sama, you could argue that are associated with the Christian version of God, since they're literally called God, but is goddess associated with one thing? No, so anyway, sorry if that sounds mean to Christian people. I'm not making this sound mean. Basically, to end this bit off a little bit, when referring to Angie's god in my comment section, if you comment about it and you have an opinion on this bit, use Kami, Kami-sama, Angie's god. If you want to go for her Japanese name of Anji, A-N-J-I, go ahead. Yonaga's god, island god, Angie's island god, would probably be better than island god actually, then refer to them as that. If you're talking about the real deity, you can use Atua. Just don't call Angie's in-game god Atua, if that makes sense. And you don't really have a reason, because you can't be like, oh, well, I didn't hear because I've told you like 80 times within the section not to make Atua jokes. So, yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the next section, which is section... I'm looking at my Google document, and I almost said section 7. No, it's section 5. Bye! Hi y'all, this is section 5 of the video, which is LGBTQ plus related topics. This section some people might find problematic. Just remember, I like dudes. I identify as this, and everybody will probably hate me or whatever for it, but I just need to bring this up. One of the longer sections, this will be longer. I'm only going to be covering the letters in the acronym LGBTQ. I will also be covering A as in asexual and aromantic as well. For T, I'm also including non-binary since it is under the trans umbrella. Then stuff like sapphics and stuff like that will be covered with the lesbians and like etc, etc. Anyways, let's get in the first letter, L as in lesbian. I'm mainly going to talk about women loving women characters here, with the one Danganronpa character who's confirmed to be lesbian, and it is Taiko Kanai from Danganronpa Togami, who is confirmed to be a lesbian, and that's it. You may be asking, what about Chabashira? She is lesbian coded, not confirmed to be a lesbian. You may headcanon her as to one, but it is explained in Taiko's backstory that she dislikes men because her Aikido master told her that talking to / interacting with men that weren't him or her father would make her weaker. I also want to point this out here. In my opinion, this is what canon encoding is. Canon, like Taiko Kanai, is being outright stated, this is canonical, this happened. For example, Sakura Ogami killing herself is canon. It is not implied, it is stated. Whereas something like Peko Peko Yama having depression is not stated, but she matches the symptoms, which makes it coded, if that makes sense. Or like Aoi Asahina, who is ADHD coded, or Hifumi, who's autistic coded, or Celestia, who's trans coded. These are not stated, but if you look into them, they are very coded as these things, whereas Taiko Kanai is confirmed to be a lesbian. Sakura Ogami is confirmed to have killed herself, if that makes sense. Anyways, I would also love to talk more about this, but whenever there is any, like, people bring up evidence as to why X character can't be lesbian because it doesn't make sense for them, everyone just comes up with compet, which is short for compulsory heterosexuality. Here's a link about it, which is completely okay, but I think it kind of gets bad when talking about characters like Mahiru, who canonically has a crush on Hajime. You cannot deny that she does. Or characters like Asahina, who canonically wants a boyfriend. Mind you, this is after she goes swimming with Makoto with a white shirt on and tells him not to look at her while being flustered, which, yeah, lesbians can do that. And her first free time event, she reveals that she stands nude on a balcony, and by this point, when she confesses that she wants a boyfriend to Makoto and asks him to be her practice boyfriend, they're basically like, when you do this, it will be at the very end of the story, I'm pretty sure. So this isn't Aoi being like, oh yeah, I'm lying about this. This is Aoi saying like, hey, I still want a boyfriend, which is why I headcanon her to be bi. Anyways, let's go on. And everyone, like, yet again, and like, I feel like this is also somewhat bi erasure, like saying that Aoi Asahina and Mahiru Koizumi did not have crushes on Hajime and Makoto. I think switched around. Like Aoi didn't have a crush on Makoto, she might have one, and Mahiru does have a crush on Hajime. Of course, if you see my headcanon video, I headcanon Aoi to be bi, and I headcanon Mahiru to be sapphic. I mainly just headcanon Mahiru to be sapphic because I think it's a nice headcanon, but I will acknowledge that canonically she does have a crush on Hajime. I'm not going to say no, she doesn't, because she does. It's also kind of like a weak excuse to say that Mahiru doesn't like Hajime and is lesbian, because the only woman that she loves is Hyoko in a like platonic mom-daughter sisters kind of way, and she also possibly platonically loves Ibuki and Mikan, and like she's the group's mom friend. And yeah, like, sorry if I'm being mean here and I don't realize it. Anyways, let's begin to talk about the next section, which is G for gay. One confirmed MLM character in Danganronpa being Juzo Sakakura, who is revealed to have a crush on his best friend Kyosuke Munakata. Then there are some other characters such as Nekomaru Nida and Kazuichi Soda, who refer to their free time events with Hajime as dates, and all the dudes in V3 have fantasies with Shuichi, which implies to some extent that these guys also like guys. Nekomaru additionally is also based off of the bara stereotype in Japan, which is made by gay dudes for gay dudes, and seemingly is only interested in guys and views women as friends. Anyways, let's get on to B as in bacon. You know I'm kidding, in monotone voice. Bisexuals are up next. Personally, the bisexual representation in Danganronpa really only comes with the protagonists, as well as Teru and Mikon, which I find a little odd as Teru and Mikon are both very hypersexualized, which I feel like is a very bad stereotype that all bi people are hypersexual. And honestly, that's all I have to say for this. I'm sorry, but anyways, let's get on to T for trans. It's T for trans. So anyways, I think the characters with the most trans coding and hints in their characters that they could be trans are Hajime Hinata, Celestia Ludenberg, and Chihiro Fujisaki. But yet again, I want to point out that none of these characters are explicitly stated to be trans, and this section will mainly be me talking about Chihiro. Yes, Chihiro does have a very trans-coded backstory, and yes, I do think that trans femmes should have a say in if Chihiro is a girl or not, but I have two teeny-weeny problems with the entire argument. One, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what Chihiro is. Chihiro Fujisaki is a drawing on your computer, phone, or TV screen. Chihiro cannot and will not ever say, I am a boy or I am a girl. The only person who can say that and be 100% canon is Kodaka himself, and he's stopped working on Danganronpa as it is over, and he has no reason to state that. And two, I was recently talking to a friend of mine. They are non-binary, by the way, so they're in the trans community, about Chihiro's backstory, and they said that if it isn't explicitly stated, then don't treat it like canon. For example, back to Nekomaru for a second. He is very gay-coded, but not a lot of gay people treat him like that this fact is canon, because it isn't. And I get wanting to see someone like you in a piece of media, I really do. But when you when you tear people down and dox them and their grandmother's cell phone numbers because they don't think that Chihiro is trans femme, that is too far. You are allowed to say, I personally believe that Chihiro or X character is trans femme because they are coded as such. I personally believe so, and if you could you maybe try to use she, her pronouns or gender neutral pronouns, or just even the character's name when talking about the character, thank you. Not, oh my god, you fat ugly slug pig bitch, you deserve to die because you don't agree with everything I say, go kill yourself you loser, you're so worthless. Because yes, the second thing does happen. I maybe exaggerated a bit, but you know what I mean. And if you're a trans femme, feel free to call Chihiro a girl, but don't present it as a fact. Even in the canon of the story, Chihiro wanted to be more manly and stop pretending to be a person he wasn't, and he never hung out with most of the girls. The two exceptions that I can actually remember to this are Aoi and Sakura. Sakura often gets mistaken for a man, and Aoi herself says that she is super masculine. So everybody Chihiro constantly hangs around is super duper masculine as well. But yet again, if you think Chihiro's trans femme, you're allowed to say that. I'm not saying no you can't, because you can, because like I've said a million times in this video, I am not the god of the universe and I'm not the god of Danganronpa. Now let's get on to A for asexual and aromantic. I just kind of combined them in this section. I only really talk about asexuals because there's no aromantic characters. Okay, we're on asexual / aromantic, even though it's asexual, I believe only. Let's just say there is, I believe, one Danganronpa character who's asexual coded, which is Rantaro, and we know this because of the ring on his middle finger, which represents asexual people. Some other examples of this are the aromantic finger, the gay ear. Sadly, there was no lesbian leg. But yet again, this is not confirmed and could have simply been a design choice that the creators did not know about. I don't really know about that though. It could have been a design choice, or they could have known and just not said anything. It's really up for you, I guess, because the creators haven't said, no, he's not this, he's not asexual, but the same thing happens with Gundam and his earring. I believe it's also the gay ear. So these characters do have a symbol of being ace and gay respectively, but the creators haven't said, oh yeah, Gundam's gay, or Gundam isn't gay, or Rantaro is ace, or Rantaro isn't ace. They just kind of have these design elements, and it's really up for interpretation. They're not yep, this character's gay, this one isn't, or no, yeah, you know what I mean. It's up for your interpretation if you think that they're asexual or gay or anything like that. Anyways, let's get on to the next section. Hi, this is section 6, which is misrepresentation of mental illness. This will also talk about, to some extent, the fetishization of mental illness and fetishization of, like, frontotemporal lobe dementia and malignant lymphoma, like, side effects, symptoms. In this section, I will be talking about dissociative identity disorder, or DID, malignant lymphoma, and frontotemporal lobe dementia. So, if you, like, have any reason to not want to hear about this, skip on to the next section, if that makes sense. Because, I don't know, maybe someone you know has gone through one of these things and, I don't know. Or maybe someone you know, or just, like, something traumatic happened because of one of these things, or just anything like that. Like, I'm not saying, like, ooh, these are bad things, but, like, if something has personally affected you and you do not like it, just skip to the next section so you can be all clear. But if you don't have any issue with these things, let's get on with this section. First, we'll start off with Toko and Sho. They are, to say at the very least, like, a very bad representation of DID. First, we can start with how they switch. The way that they switch from Toko to Sho, or vice versa, is being shocked, being unconscious, like fainting or getting hit over the head, or sneezing. All of these are not actual ways to switch, as far as I know, at least. Then there's also the only alter in the system is a serial killer who actively doesn't care about the host and says so multiple times, and the fact that her DID was used as a plot point in Chapter 2 and as a twist in the English release of the game. And in the English release of the game, during Hangman's Gambit, there's a puzzle you have to solve for Toko, and the correct answer is schizo. And this is what Toko has. It says schizo, not DID. Hell, it doesn't even say the full word, which is schizophrenia, which, by the way, there's multiple types of schizophrenia, so... and if schizophrenia was the actual answer, out of the two characters of Toko and Sho, only one matches a symptom of schizophrenia, being agitation, and that is Toko. Sho doesn't match this symptom. To put it lightly, they gave her a DID to make a plot point out of it, and as a shock twist in Chapter 2, and then in Hangman's Gambit, they say the wrong answer for what Toko has. For example, this is like a character having depression, but the answer was straight stage 3 breast cancer. They are not the same thing. Like, you might get depression because of the stage 3 breast cancer, but schizophrenia and DID aren't linked in any way, as far as I know, so I don't know why they said schizo. And, just fucking say DID. And I'm not going to say schizo, I'm going to say schizophrenia, because I think that, I don't know, it just kind of sounds rude in my opinion. Sorry if I sounded rude, but, DID is shorter than the slang mean word they used. Anyways, let's get on to Nagito. Nagito has stage 3 malignant lymphoma, and frontal temporal lobe dementia. The symptoms of malignant lymphoma can include enlarged lymph nodes, fever, drenching sweats, unintended weight loss, itching, and constantly feeling tired. Now, to my recollection, Nagito does have some sweat, sometimes have lots of sweat in his sprites and lots of it, and I do believe that for his height and age, he is on the slimmer side of the scale, but I don't know about the other symptoms. And just as a little side note here, Danganronpa does actually put their characters at reasonable weights. For example, if you calculate Akane's BMI, she is actually on, you'd expect her to be on the more, almost overweight to middle side because she has muscle, but she's actually on the very skinny side of her height due to her being poor, and her muscle is probably the only thing that's keeping her from not being too skinny. Anyway, sorry, someone just texted me right there. And the symptoms of frontal temporal lobe dementia, there's behavioral changes which consist of inappropriate actions, lack of empathy, poor judgment, apathy, repetitive compulsive behavior, poor personal hygiene, overeating. Then there's speech and language problems such as impairment or loss of speech, language difficulties. Then there's the movement disorders such as tremors, rigidity, muscle spasms, poor coordination, difficulty swallowing, and muscle weakness. So in terms of what Toko and Sho have going on, Nagito is better represented with his health issue, but I do feel like the part that grosses me out more is that his side effects of having these two things, like being apathetic or him doing this or him feeling that, or him feeling lesser than everybody else, is played off by the fans oh my god, he's so quirky and a cute gay boy. But then Nagito is so much more than that. It's confirmed that he should have died in his 20s, but as of now in the series, Nagito survived till the end, placing him at around age 23 to 24, and it's hinted that the only thing that is keeping him alive is simply his luck. Also to be noted here is just this really weird double standard for Nagito. Like, Nagito being apathetic is seen as quirky and cool, but then other apathetic characters such as Celeste, Mikon, Korekyo, and Angie, their apathy is seen as bad, strange, evil, weird. Which, like, this entire fandom is just the double standards. So, anyways, next section, which is also kind of a double standard section. Hi y'all, this is section 7, which I want to say I did record my Ruruka Ando section a while ago, but I'm gonna re-record this. Anyways, this is section 7, which is understanding characters and their actions. I will say that this entire section was made just to talk about Ruruka Ando and how the fandom treats her in regards to her being a shitty person, and how they idolize people like Kokichi and Byakuya who are literally on the same level as Ruruka. And I also want to talk about how characters' actions don't dictate what they're like as a person. My main example of this will be Kirumi Tojo. Anyways, let's get this started off with Ruruka Ando. Ruruka Ando, in my opinion, is one of, if not the most hated character in all of Danganronpa, which is a little odd. Ruruka is often portrayed as this evil character who's willing to stab everybody in the back, but that's just a flat-out lie. It's shown time and time again that Ruruka can actually care for people, mainly her boyfriend Sanosuke Izuyoi, or Yoi, which I'll be referring to him as. When she kills him, she cries as she doesn't want him to die, but he needed to die for her survival. Yoi found a door which Ruruka and him would be able to escape from the killing game. There's just one teeny weeny little problem. Ruruka's NG code, an NG code for y'all that don't know is basically something that you can't let happen to you. Ruruka has the NG code that nobody is allowed to leave the building / playing field, which puts her at a major disadvantage. If somebody was to find an exit, she dies. So she kills her boyfriend not out of anger or taking satisfaction. She kills / betrays him so he can't betray her first. It should also be noted that Ruruka has some amount of paranoia that people people that she loves will eventually betray her. This mainly stems from her last year in Hope's Peak Academy, where Seiko accidentally gave her the wrong drug for her candies, which then made the judges throw up. And then when her and Seiko stumbled backwards, they accidentally detonated a bomb. As you can see, this was very traumatic for Ruruka, especially considering that in the relationship between Seiko and Ruruka actually relied on Seiko. In all of Ruruka's other relationships, it's always her the other way around, and the other person relies on her. As she adds drugstore candies and makes them highly addictive. As I've just told you, you can get the idea of why she chose to kill him. Ruruka values her life, and to quote her before her death, "I'll survive this. You may be gone, Yoi, but I'm not alone. When I get out of here, I can make other friends. Tons of them." As you can see here, yet again, even after Yoi is dead, she still remembers him and loves him. That won't change. Ruruka Ando will always love Yoi in life and death. Now let's talk about the other person she kills, being Koichi Kizukura. And this one is actually not her fault. Yet again, the issue was that she was not trying to kill him. She was trying to kill Kyoko Kirigiri, who was working on finding a way out of the killing game. Ruruka tried to kill her by making her fall to her death, but Koichi gives up his life to save Kyoko. As you can see, the two people Ruruka Ando kills was for her survival. She didn't want to kill Yoi nor Koichi. Even though she was kind of rude to Koichi, Ruruka Ando is not a pure evil character. And to quote something else here, one murder makes a villain, one murder makes a villain, millions a hero. Ruruka Ando will never be the villain. Just because she has flaws does not make her bad. Everybody, whether you would like to admit it or not, has at least one flaw. And finally, let's talk about Seiko and Ruruka some more. In one of the episodes of DR3 Future Side, I don't know the exact episode, Ruruka and Seiko manage to talk with Ruruka in a different room, but there's a window so they can see each other. Ruruka, while talking with Seiko, quickly deducts that Seiko's NG code is that people cannot step on her, Seiko's, shadow. Ruruka then uses this to her advantage to try and make Seiko eat one of her sweets, although she does know that Seiko has a medical condition, so she cannot. Ruruka still wants her to, which some people view as greedy, but Ruruka literally thinks the only thing she is good at in life is making sweets and feels like Seiko doesn't believe in her. If this was you and your friend, you most likely would feel the exact same way if they didn't want to eat something you made or watch you do something, etc. Also, in this scene, Ruruka admits to Seiko that she's always admired her and looked up to her and was even jealous of her. Would Ruruka Ando do that if she was like if she was about to be killed by Seiko just to rile her up even more? No, it literally makes zero sense for Ruruka to do that. If we see one constant thing with Ruruka Ando, it's that she has a determination to live, not just for herself, but for Yoi. Funnily enough, a character with a similar determination to live is hailed as the god of Danganronpa. I will also say, to understand her a bit more, we need to watch her YouTube combination and read. The YouTube compilation is by King Saki, and read the comments of Sky Kid Pandas and O4 Mew, who bring up these points just better in my opinion, like in better detail than I did. I also want to point out that Ruruka Ando is a realist. By episode 9, the episode where Ruruka dies, the cast is dwindled down to Miei Gekugahara, who is revealed to be a robot, Makoto Naegi, who has luck on his side, Aoi Asahina, who might not be very smart but is very fast, Kyoko Yuri, who is extremely smart, Kyosuke Munakata, who is smart, skilled with a sword, and ready to kill anyone and everyone as long as hope will prevail, Ryota Mitarai, who can brainwash people with his animations, and Juzo Sakakura, who's the ultimate boxer, and is insanely strong. Now let's compare them to Ruruka. She is weak and only good at making candy, and in an insane amount of distress due to what she had to do to Yoi only 3 episodes prior, and probably some regret for killing Koichi 1 episode prior. Ruruka most likely knew that she wouldn't make it out. The only person she could even possibly kill with an NG code would be Aoi Asahina, whose NG code is that she cannot be hit with a punch or kick. Sure, maybe she could trigger Juda's NG code, which is that he cannot actually hit somebody with his fist and he has to use a weapon, and she might be able to trigger Makoto's NG code, which is that he can't run in the halls. But let me make this clear. Let's say we were Ruruka Ando and we need to escape, and we can be the only person to escape. How do we go about taking out these 6 other people? First of all, I would say to get rid of Ryota. First, it might seem odd due to him being the weakest out of all the players, but even then, Ruruka is probably just barely stronger than him. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, Ryota's NG code is unknown, so I think the thing that would make the most sense would be for Ruruka to use her candy on him like she did with Juzo and make Ryota attack Juzo. This attack should also be in an area that Ruruka has cleared up beforehand, so Juzo cannot use a weapon. She would also try to either force her drugs into Juzo's system so she can steal his weapon, or do that when he was sleeping. She would also need to steal Seiko's drug from Kyoko so she can't be revived later on. The drug is called Antagonist, by the way. There are just 2 things here that must be followed. Ensure that then after this, there's 2 things that must be followed. Ensure that Makoto Naegi stays alive, and make sure that Ruruka stays alive. You may be asking, why does Makoto need to stay alive? Well, Kyoko's NG code is that Makoto cannot be alive past the 4th time limit. So if Ruruka makes sure that Makoto is alive past the 4th time limit, that makes sure that Kyoko is dead and she doesn't really have to do anything to kill off Kyoko. So if the plan is working smoothly, Ruruka would have killed Juzo and Kyoko. You might be asking, what about Ryota? Well, he'll probably be used as a distraction/bait so she can get the upper hand on Kyosuke. Unfortunately, we cannot use Kyosuke's NG code to help heal him, as he's not allowed to open doors, unless we somehow manage to clear out a room and take his sword and block the door, leaving him to either starve a slow and painful death, or to open the door of the room and force him to have a quick and painful death. Let's be honest here, Ryota would have died by now, but Ruruka would have also drugged Kyosuke as well. Now there are just 2 more obstacles, Makoto Naegi and Aoi Asahina, which sucks for Ruruka, as one has the power of luck and the other is strong. Although Aoi is not as strong as Juzo and Kyosuke, logically, Ruruka needs to get rid of Aoi before she kills Makoto, as Makoto uses piggybacks as to not technically run in the halls. Killing off Aoi would be easy, just punch her and it's done. Now, it would just be Ruruka and Makoto. She would need to chase him with something that could kill him instantly, like a knife, and she would need to run. She would need to start running to cause him to accidentally run instead of his NG code. And she would also need to do this in 1 day to not let the monitor screw up the plan and accidentally kill her over Makoto. Now do you see why Ruruka is somewhat forgiven? She would have never survived. And yes, it's shitty that she killed off Roy, but at least he didn't have to repeat it. Roy embraced his death as his spirit would always be with her, and now we're together now. Anyways, sorry for this long rant, but let's move on to the other characters. And now let's talk about Kirumi Tojo, who is introduced the exact opposite of Ruruka. When she is introduced, she's introduced as a loving, caring, selfless maid who will do anything anyone asks as long as it is in reason and that she can actually do it. Throughout the first chapter, she raises some interesting points and theories, not willing to take a chance at who the culprit is, even using some minor evidence such as where Gonta was to make him a suspect as well, and even though he wasn't the killer, she still made the right decision. Then in chapter 2, it's revealed that Kirumi was the killer and that she killed Ryoma in order to save all of Japan. And I think that this is where we see the real Kirumi Tojo. The method of how she kills him is actually very violent in my opinion, hitting him over the head with a broom, handcuffing, then drowning him. Then when he was dead, she put his body in a piranha tank and watched along with everyone else what happened to Ryoma. She even intended to frame Himiko Yumeno for this, which proves that Kirumi can be a loving, caring, and selfless person, but she can also be heartless, cold, and very selfish. Not to mention, her entire plan at the end of the class trial was to make the weaker, minded students pity her and basically get them to kill themselves. The only students who didn't fall for her trick were Kaito Momota, Maki Harukawa, Anji Onaga, Korekyo Shinguji, Mio Iruma, and Kokichi Oma. That's 6 characters who are all very mentally strong, if that makes sense. And technically, Tsumugi and Kiba were the mastermind and the audience surrogate, respectively, but still, Kiba was willing to die as that is what the audience kind of wanted to see happen, and Tsumugi was never going to actually die, but still, the majority of the class at the time, wanted to die in Kirumi's place. Her final moments were of her being a treacherous, backstabbing, lying bitch. Yet for some reason, she is treated as the queen of V3, whereas Ruruka's last moments were spent alone in a cold, dark room with nobody, and she is treated like the devil reincarnated. And I also want to point this out. I know technically, Tsumugi and Kiba weren't going to die in that chapter, but as far as we knew, they could have, and as far as the class knew they could have, so I'm still keeping that. Basically, to put it here is, to quickly sum up the section with just these 2 characters, I think that's all I'm going to sum up the section as, sure, Kokichi and Byakuya do some shady stuff and are also idolized like Kirumi, but to sum up the section, a character's actions and what they do in the story doesn't actually represent them all the time. Kirumi was introduced as a nice and loving person, but at the end, she was cold and heartless and brutal. Ruruka was introduced as a rude, conniving, scheming person, but at her end, she was cold, alone, and just wanted joy. That was it. Their characters are very different from each other. And I think Ruruka is, I think what happened mainly with Ruruka is that the team didn't know what they wanted to do with her. They were oh yeah, we're gonna both make Seiko and Ruruka be at fault for the friendship, but then somewhere along the lines they only made Ruruka, so the fandom hates her now. And the same thing with Byakuya and Kokichi, their actions do define them as a person, because they are introduced in the series as fucking cold, heartless monsters, or no character whatsoever in Kokichi's case, but the things they do are bad and they need to be viewed as bad. The things Kirumi does need to also be viewed as bad, and Ruruka is also good, if that makes sense. I'm the number 1 Ruruka Ando apologist, but I hope that in this section I could give you some insight onto why I think that Ruruka should at least be somewhat forgiven, or not condemned as much at least, because there are other characters like Kirumi Tojo, Sakura Ogami, Byakuya Togami, Kokichi Oma, Nagito Komaeda, who do way worse things than Ruruka in my opinion, yet they are hailed as the gods of Danganronpa, and she is hailed as the devil reincarnated, for no reason other than her having an interesting backstory. Anyway, sorry for me ranting, let's get on to the next section. Okay, so it turns out that this is the end, and I just hope that you guys liked the video. Just because I want y'all to be interested in anything that I'm doing in the future, from now on, every other Monday, I will be doing a series called Danganronpa Deep Dive, or Dangan Deep Dive. It's basically where I talk about something within the Danganronpa universe, whether it be a location, a character's motives, stuff like that. Also, within the next couple weeks, also expect a video about the timeline of Danganronpa to the best of my ability, and rewriting Case 3 of Trigger Happy Havoc. Those are currently what I have planned right now. I have one Dangan Deep Dive planned, I have rewriting Hope's Peak to the best of my ability, and then I also have, what you want to call it, then I have rewriting Trial 3 of the first game. All I know is that I believe the order of release will be this video, the timeline of Danganronpa to the best of my ability, Dangan Deep Dive, and then rewriting Case 3 of Trigger Happy Havoc. But I've recorded them all within the time that I'm recording this ending for the video, so all these videos have been like pre-recorded, what I call them, to be like sent out later, if that makes sense. I'm just finishing editing this one, although do expect my, what you want to call it, my rewrite of Case 3 to be a little bit longer, as I have taken pixel sprites from all the characters and the maps and to like show you where the characters would be and stuff when certain things happen, and I animate that, well, not animate, but just like move the characters. So kind of expect that video to take a little longer. My Dangan Deep Dive and my History of Hope's Peak Academy, and my timeline of Danganronpa to the best of my ability will also be out. It only really covers major events from the games and anime, as well as a couple things from the manga, and that is about it. Yeah, out of all these videos, the one that I've been planning to make the most has been the timeline video, which I've been planning, I think I planned on doing it a couple months ago, but just didn't really have the time to do that. So, like I said, I hope y'all are looking forward to the other videos. They won't be as long as this one. I think my timeline one is about like 20 minutes. I think my Dangan Deep Dive one is about like also 20 to 25 minutes. Then I believe my Celestia Ludenberg, well, not Celestia Ludenberg, rewriting Case 3 of Case 3 of Trigger Happy Havoc is about 20-ish minutes as well. So they're all like 20-minute videos. Maybe it's closer to half an hour. I don't really know. Anyways, I hope y'all like stay tuned for those videos, and I hope you guys like this one. I know this is a bit longer, being 65-ish minutes long, so I hope that you could have sat through this video. I made this video just to talk about my opinions, like I've said, and like things that I don't like about the fandom and other stuff like that. And if you disagree with me on anything, I'm not saying that you're like an evil, horrible person who deserves to be burnt at the stake. Like, if you personally think that Chihiro is trans femme, cool, that's good on you. If you personally like Daisaku Bandai, that's good on you. I'm just saying, like, I don't really like the double standards or the way that they made the darker skinned Asian people and the somewhat racism in the fandom that I have personally kind of seen. And yet again, this is all coming from my perspective. You guys might see something totally different. Personally, I'm in the side of the fandom that likes to analyze things and like talk about characters, and not like the haha funny meme side that I know some members of the fandom are in. That's just me personally. It's also mainly because I'm writing a Danganronpa, I'm writing multiple, so I kind of like analyzing shit like that. So anyways, just I hope y'all are looking forward to more of the things that I'm doing. Like I said, expect 2 videos to be out within the next couple weeks. The videos might get like better editing, I don't know. Usually I like this is me personally, but longer videos like this, I do like to listen to these when I'm like writing or like playing The Sims or Minecraft or anything. I just really like those. So if y'all play Minecraft, or you're writing a Danganronpa, or writing in general, or you play The Sims, like that's what I personally like these long videos for. Anyways, I guess this is the end of the video. I hope y'all enjoy it. If you did, like it. If you want to comment anything about your own personal opinions or things you find wrong with the fandom, please do so. I know this is kind of similar to my rant videos, except this one was scripted, whereas my rant videos had like basic dot points, like talk about this, talk about that, whereas this one was scripted. So this ending isn't scripted though. If you're new to this channel and you like this, subscribe, I guess. Anyways, bye. I hope you have a good day.